How historic is this move that world leaders and the US president were involved in signing this deal, bringing an end to the fighting between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, ending 2 years of bloodshed later? How can we look at this, or can we look at it as an answered prayer to millions who were standing against what was going on in Gaza?
Well, I think we have to divide the events into two different but connected things. There have been any number of ceasefire agreements and truce agreements in the Middle East for 80 years and more. Um, but at the same time, there this particular version of things is unique in the way in which it summoned some 20 leaders from other nations to participate in its consecration. With that meeting, that very hastily called meeting at the hotel in Sharm El-Sheikh. What this does, however, is it does not yet answer all of the remaining questions of the way forward. Donald Trump's statements, which basically painted a picture of a glowing morning sun breaking with all manner of peace and love and friendship, it's a little premature. Uh, yes, the hostages have been returned. Yes, many hundreds of Palestinian individuals who had either been arrested or detained have been released. Yes, the guns are silent, uh, but it is not at all clear that all of the next steps will easily and efficiently be obtained, not the least of which, for example, the stabilization force that is supposed to be deployed to Gaza to keep the two sides both separate and to keep the peace more generally. Um, it's not entirely clear who is going to participate in it, who's going to pay for it, and what their terms of engagement will be once the force is actually deployed. Similarly, with this board of peace that's to be established, it's not entirely clear what its terms of reference will be. It's not entirely clear who will be part of it. And most especially, it's certainly not clear who's going to pay for all the renovation, restoration, rebuilding that is going to take place. There are lots of unanswered questions left on the table. On the other hand,
Mm.
and I have to say it, on the other hand, the guns are silent and the aid is flowing and hostages have returned. And those are no mean things.
That there are questions that need answers is the rhetorical shift, acknowledging equal rights for Palestinians and Israelis, but stopping short of recognizing Palestine's right to statehood or self determination. Does this omission suggest that the Trump administration is trying to reshape the conversation from sovereignty to one of coexistence?
Well, the two terms are not inconsistent. They're not mutually inconsistent. Coexistence implies recognition, it implies stability, and it implies peaceful evolution towards some further goals. The Trump administration has a rhetorical base on the way it frames the discussion, based on its long time rather, support for Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel. At the same time, this goes further than I think it's fair to say than any of the previous agreements that would have been reached, whether we include the Camp David Accord, the Oslo Accord, the Green Line back in 1948, for that matter. So I'm not about to give a lot of credence to the way in which the Trump administration is shaping its rhetoric. I'm much more intrigued, interested, and concerned with the question of what do the actions create, what conditions on the ground the actions of the Trump administration are creating. In other words, I'm looking for concrete responses rather than rhetorical flourishes.
So, what should be important then to note in terms of laying the foundation for Gaza's future now, and should that strategy or plan be made public?
Well, I was a little disappointed, I must say, that the terms of the agreement that was signed last night, our time at Sharm El-Sheikh, were not released. But we do have, after all, the 20-point plan, skeletal plan that it is, of that peace proposal that the Trump administration proposed a few days earlier. Um, it's going to be important for all of us who follow these things to be able to see the actual content of what the agreement that was signed the other day, uh, what it includes. Uh, but I think we have to give a lot of credence to the idea that A, the ceasefire is in existence, B, that it is endorsed by not just the Israelis and Hamas in this particular case, but a whole collection of other nations, including a wide swathe of Islamic states in the Middle East and Pakistan and Indonesia, the world's largest predominantly Islamic state, all of which have been are now party to that peace agreement. I think that is a very different set of circumstances on the ground than where we were just say a week, 2 weeks ago. And
Mm.
I, I'm really, really going to look forward to seeing what the agreement actually specifies and whether or not it varies and in what degree it varies from the peace proposal that the Trump administration issued a short while ago. I think those are the important questions going forward, and we have to really pay attention to how that evolves. One other point that I would leave on the table for us to consider now, it's also going to be extremely important to see the way people in Gaza react to the changing circumstances. Will Hamas continue to remove, quote unquote, its rivals in Gaza? Will it attempt to maintain a militarized presence there? Those are things that are clearly unresolved by the events so far. And those are going to be really important in the way in which it creates a reality that the Israelis react to. So there are lots of things left to discuss. There
Mm.
are a whole lot of, this is like a coloring book in which all we have is the pictures with the lines. We don't have much in the way of crayons being used yet.
And just briefly, Brooks, on that 20-point proposal by Trump, included is the Board of Peace,
Mhm.
which will ensure that any transactional authority created yields the necessary impact. Who do you think should be part of that Board of Peace? Trump chairs it. He's suggested the UK's Sir Tony Blair to be part of it.
Well, Tony Blair has, for some people, a fairly checkered past. On the other hand, he knows the region rather well, and he has, importantly, perhaps most importantly, he has the connections with the leaders in the region, the Middle East we're talking about, obviously, such that he may well be able to motivate and encourage participation in the reconstruction effort because who sits on the board of Peace is interesting and may be important, but who ponies up with actual cash to support the stabilization force, to help pay for reconstruction, rebuilding, and things like that? That's much more important, I think. Um, as a I think one of the things we should look for in that Board of Peace is how broad the representation is
Mhm.
and from where all the different people will participate. Those will be the questions we should look at as well.
Brooks, thank you so much again for your analysis. Much needed and appreciated.
You take care, and I'm sure we'll have this conversation or something subsequent to this in succeeding days.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Brooks Spector is a former U.S. diplomat and international relations expert.